Thanks, everybody, and thanks to Memphis Rocks, to John, to Sam for having me here. This has been a real privilege today. I have bouldered all over the Southeast. I'd never been here before today, and this place is amazing, and I'm excited for tomorrow. And I was a bit of a last-minute addition to this. My dear friend Nina Williams couldn't make it, and when Sam and John asked me what I wanted to talk about, I was like, well, I want to talk about the mission of this festival, which I am evangelical about and I believe in, and that's what this talk is. And the mission I wrote down here, just go to the website, it says, the mission of this festival is to make climbing more accessible and to celebrate the experiences we have. That is fundamentally important to me, and I'm going to tell you why. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you who I am. My name is Pete, and as you can see from this, we're going to do a little tour of my Instagram. So those of you who follow me have seen some of these visuals. I apologize for reusing. But I live in Greenpoint. This is the view from Greenpoint. It's okay. And when I'm in Greenpoint, I climb at the Gunks. Before I lived in Greenpoint, I lived in Oxford, England, where I studied. That's a much longer story. But while I was there, I climbed in the Peak District, which was absolutely gorgeous. Even the boulder problems that climb out of a hole in the ground are amazing there. Before that, I lived in Switzerland. This is a small mountain town called Engelberg. I studied business. We'll get into that later. But I climbed at crags like this that are outrageous. If you have really good eyes, you can see my friend Tibea way up here on these routes that go on 45-minute red point burns. Pretty amazing place, the Belly. And you would just cast off into these seas of limestone climbing up into the Alps. It was amazing. And if you didn't want to do that, you could just go, I know there's some mountaineers here, and y'all can have my part of that. Snow and ice and things that fall over are not my thing. But the Alps are gorgeous, and it was wonderful to live there. And before that, I lived in Western Massachusetts, which is sleepy and beautiful and a lot like it is here. There's wonderful climbing, sport climbing, bouldering. This is a route called Afterburner, one of my absolute favorites. And before that, I lived in a van before it was cool. That's a 1977, Scout 2, that was so rusted out that if I wanted to move the driver's seat backwards and forwards, I would pick it up and move it back. And I would pick it up and move it forward. And I lived in that thing for a long time. I also hitchhiked across the country. This will tell you how long ago it was. I did 3.5 months hitchhiking. I had $900. And it got me going for 3.5 months. I got to go to Bishop and Waco tanks before crash pads were invented. That was pretty cool. I got to climb kind of as bouldering was just coming into its own. And so this whole transformation that has happened in climbing over the last 30 years has been absolutely wild for me to watch, and I've loved to see it. And if we go all the way back to the beginning, my first job in climbing was back at the Gunks, where I was a rescue ranger. I was an EMT, and I learned to see the change that was coming in climbing. Because the Gunks are just right next to New York City. You see all these people coming up from New York City to go climbing, see the passion, see the psych. It was an amazing thing to watch. And that led me into an entrepreneurial journey as I started to start businesses. And I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but one of the great things about climbing, we're going to talk about this in a minute, is community. That's my very best friend, Jason Danforth, and we were looking at the climbing competitions that we were in, and we said, we can do better. So we started a pro tour. And that pro tour did a lot for expanding the reach of climbing. We were the first to broadcast online way back in 2009, before Instagram Live was just a thing and you could go live on anything. We put 25,000 people in a bouldering competition, or at a bouldering competition in Central Park, which still might be one of the best attended climbing competitions ever. And after that, after my journey in climbing, I hit my midlife crisis, as you do, and I tried to be a little more creative with what I wanted to do with my midlife crisis, rather than just like getting a really goofy tattoo or buying a boat. And no criticism of anybody with goofy tattoos or boats. I'm sure it's lovely. I wanted to study business. I wanted to study what's important in the world. I wanted to understand how I could make a change. Because in my community, with the people who hold my values, I'm a little more comfortable inside capitalism than most of them. So I went to Switzerland, I went to Oxford, that's what I was doing. This picture is actually in China, studying business in China. And across cultures, I learned how things are created in places from Brazil to China, to Silicon Valley, to Western Africa, to Europe. And I learned the perspective of the cultures that create that value, the perspective of the folks who are just trying to figure out how to live their lives and do their thing. But while I was doing that, I never got too far away from climbing. And this is a picture of the board of directors of the American Alpine Club after a strategic planning session. I stayed plugged in. I volunteered with the Access Fund. I volunteered with the American Alpine Club. And eventually I was on the board of the American Alpine Club and became the interim CEO for a year to transform that organization. And I learned during that time that the influence of climbers is more than we think. We were doing a lot of things like lobbying on Capitol Hill, lobbying for legislation. And I learned, and this is what I'm really going to get into in a minute, that the act of climbing, the act of being part of this community, prepares you really well for difficult tasks that you're not going to see an immediate reward for, like going to Capitol Hill and trying to lobby for change. And right now, just to finish the story about me, I currently sit on the board of directors of a climate nonprofit called Climate Words. So through all that climbing and traveling, what I've learned is, and that's 32 years of climbing and traveling and studying, I think climbing is more important now than ever, and that's why I think this festival is more important now than ever. And the rest of this talk, I want to tell you why. And it starts with the thing itself. A life informed by climbing is different than a life informed by other sports. I play a lot of basketball. I adore basketball. It's amazing. It's competitive. There is strategy. There are tactics. But it's not the same. It's not the same critical thinking. It's not the same problem solving. And most importantly, it's not the same level of like fear and anxiety. I don't have to know myself well enough or as well when I'm trying to win a basketball game as I do when I'm trying to send a route, particularly one that I'm a little bit afraid of. And climbing is a practice that permeates me in a way that and I think everybody here knows what I'm talking about, in a way that other activities don't. It permeates my physical, emotional, intellectual state, permeates my soul. And it's deeply affecting in the right moments. It constantly requires me to be honest about what I can and can't do. And that's really hard to do in a world that's filled with delusion, right? All I got to do is open my phone and go on Instagram, and I can delude myself into anything. But climbing, I did or I didn't, and there's no excuse. And the benefits of that anchor, and here I'm going to take a little detour into neuroscience, which is like a little bit of a nerd hobby of mine. Thank you, I appreciate that. I do, strictly speaking, have a degree, so. The benefits of that anchor, the benefits of that practice, right? Climbing, putting me in the moment, putting me in my body, making me think while I'm a little bit afraid, making me problem solve in my cognitive space. Those benefits are profound and real and rooted in science. For example, did you know that me gesturing right now is making me tangibly smarter and making you understand what I'm saying better? And we can all do an experiment right now that would prove that. If you imagine you're going to say, okay, Pete, I'm going to send you to my favorite coffee shop in Chattanooga, but I got to sit on my hands and I can't make gestures. It's like uncomfortable just to think about, right? And it's crazy if they do studies, blind people who have never seen a gesture when they think. So there's a lot of good science about embodied cognition and moving around and that making you actually tangibly have better cognitive processes in that moment. It's even better when you're in nature. University of Michigan did a cool study. They sent 2 groups of kids to take a test. One of them walked down a busy road, the other one walked through an arboretum. Which group do you think did better? The group that walked through nature. So we get to think critically, we get to use our bodies, and we get to be in nature. Talk about therapy. That's good for your mental health. And there's a ton of science around it. And as climbers, we're especially lucky because this gift we've been given, this activity, is super accessible in a way that it wouldn't be if we were surfers or something else like that. Anybody know what gym this is? Not close. I know there's people here from...
Vital Roof.
That's Vital. That's Vital in Williamsburg. And there's not a surfing gym in Williamsburg, but there is a climbing gym. So again, if we're thinking about the mission of this festival, we have a strategic economic advantage. We can get climbing where the people are. We got social barriers, we got economic barriers, we got all kinds of barriers we got to bring down. But it's there, and we can get to it. And we should share it, because climbing teaches us a lot of great things. It teaches us some incredible life skills, right? We find courage in it. We find joy in it. We learn to think creatively and critically. We learn to adapt, and we learn to make hard choices and to be accountable for them. But in order for those lessons to mean something, we have to take them outside this being merely a sport or a hobby, and we have to live the way we climb. If we engage climbing with intention, it becomes a template for so many things. You want to ask for a promotion at work? That takes courage, right? You want to get that promotion, you want to enjoy your job, you got to be able to find your joy in your work. That goes on for a long time. It gets boring. You got to figure out what the next step is. You got to be creative. And then even if you're creative and you imagine the right next step in your career, you got to adapt to that change. That's hard, but all of those things I just mentioned, right? Courage, joy, creativity, adaptation. I can do that because I'm a climber and I know how to do that. And most importantly, I skipped this, I know there is value in the struggle. And that's where I'm really going with this, because life can feel like such a struggle. It can be so hard to get up again and again and again and again when algorithms are feeding me scenes that are making me feel really despondent about what's going on in the world. And that's why I believe climbing and getting people into it is more valuable now than ever. We are a community that understands fundamentally that the struggle is part of success. And we know this, you know this. What's the hardest boulder problem you've ever done? It's the same for all of you. It's a project, not an on-site. That's what it is. And life is a project, not an on-site. What's the hardest route? It's a red point, not an on-site. We understand the value of failure and refining beta. We understand that success is never guaranteed. But we also know that success might just be one small tweak of our beta away. And so this is what life is. It's a project, not an on-site. You don't nail your first job. You don't nail your first relationship. You don't vote in your first election and call it done. You fail, you tweak your beta, you get it right. And this is the crucial ingredient, I think, of the rest of our lives. And this is a moment where, inexorably, I can't not think about the context societally that we're in. We're going to be working for the rest of our lives. And it's going to be a project, not an on-site. We're going to have to get up again and again to work in support of the issues we care about, in support of our community, and ultimately in support of our own joy. And who better to do that work than a community that understands that the biggest successes requires many, many, many failures, and we don't quit. So as I said, I am passionate about getting people into climbing because climbing gives us a stronger personal relationship with our negative emotions, particularly fear and anxiety. We learn the value of them. We learn the value of learning about them and pushing through them. I'm passionate about it because it teaches us to find our joy. No good work has been done without finding joy. Every great American art form comes from struggle, period. And climbing helps us find our joy. We find community. This is so awesome. Other people don't get to do this. It's amazing, and we can bring more people in, and they see the value in it. We just want to be here, even if I didn't climb well today. And finally, it's service. The tools that we learn through climbing allow us to serve. They allow us to spread that gift, to do events like this, to bring people in, and to amplify what we're able to do. And so that's why, as I said, I believe in this festival. I believe in this mission. I believe in learning to struggle at the societal level through the practice that I enjoy every day. And if I can take this template of how I approach climbing, how I approach my project, and I can take it to the issues I care about, and I know that I'm not going to win every day. I know that I'm not going to win every year. But if I keep training, I can find incremental progress, I can share that beta, and other people can go further than I did. Yeah. And I really think that that is the positive influence on the world around us. Because when you think about it, if you live your life as a project, not an on-site, you're going to have the most impact. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, John. Thanks, Memphis Rock, for having me. Appreciate y'all.